This is going to be your complete guide to running back, quarterback, and defensive streamers this week. Now, of course, some of these running backs I think can actually be great values in the long term. So what I'm going to be doing for you is I'm actually going to be ranking the best pickups by position this week. And I'm going to be giving you some players that you can drop at every position as well. First off, starting at quarterback, honestly, at this point, I think you can go ahead and let go of Trevor Lawrence. It's actually funny as he was already on the waiver wire in the Flock League, and I decided to pass on him this week to play Geno instead. And if you look at Lawrence now through the first 3 weeks, oh, cool. Weeks 1 and 2, you get 11.2, 13.3 fantasy points. But maybe, just maybe, we're going to see this ship turn around in a game where he has to throw the ball a ton in week 3. Nope. Does not happen. You get a cool 10.5 fantasy points for Trevor Lawrence. So far this season, he has set a high at 220 passing yards, 2 games below 180 passing yards. Doesn't matter what the volume looks like. And also, we know Lawrence isn't really going to run the ball. In week 2, he had the 45 rushing yards, but that's not really why you're rostering him. Deshaun Watson, another safe player to drop. I was actually surprised to see Deshaun Watson is still rostered in 28% of leagues. But looking at Watson here, it's a quarterback that's had now 3 straight games with under 200 passing yards. And to be honest with you, coming into the season, I had no idea what to expect with Deshaun Watson. You had a massive range of outcomes where we had seen Watson in the past be one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL. Clearly, that time is long gone. Clearly, this is a Browns offense that is completely falling apart. It's time to let go of Watson, who's giving you a little bit of rushing production, but not nearly enough to make up for the lack of passing volume. And then Justin Herbert is actually rostered in 61% of leagues at the moment, but I'd be fine if you wanted to move on from Herbert. We had seen through the first 2 weeks that this Chargers offense wanted to run the ball, run the ball, run the ball. You only had, I believe, a total of 46 passing attempts through the first 2 weeks for Justin Herbert. In week 3, he actually leaves the game early. So all of a sudden you're in a situation where with him walking around in a boot, you have no idea when he is playing football and when he's not. And even if he does come back in week 4, there's no way you're going to be able to start him against the Chiefs. And in week 5, you have the bye week. So yeah, might as well just let go of him. Go ahead and stream the quarterback position. And the streamer that you should go after, only rostered in 38% of leagues right now, I actually will be putting in a waiver wire claim for him in the Flock League, is Sam Darnold. Looking at Sam Darnold, this is a quarterback that now has had 8 total touchdowns to start the year. Yes, 8 total touchdowns from Darnold. And the context behind this is really impressive, where you have to remember that Justin Jefferson missed a large chunk of time in week 2. And on top of that, you had no Jordan Addison in weeks 2 and 3. And mix in the fact that TJ Hawkinson's not back in this offense yet. Now that the Vikings are 3-0, we can very easily see a path for them wanting to bring TJ Hawkinson back in, that he is actually going to be a meaningful piece to this offense. And as you get Addison added back into this offense, as you get TJ Hawkinson, I actually think that Darnold has a little more room to grow in terms of the overall passing yardage that we are seeing. So I think Darnold is a better QB pickup than any of those other quarterbacks that we talked about dropping at this point. Now, going over to the running back position, first let's get rid of the drops, and then we'll move over to the pickups. Gus Edwards, bye-bye, see you later. I mean, he actually did have an impressive snap rate through the first 2 weeks. Played 42 and 48% of the Los Angeles Chargers snaps. This past week, that fell down to only 35%. J.K. Dobbins really is taking over as the feature down back here for this Chargers offense. And at the same time, this Chargers offense should be much worse with the injuries to both Joe Alt and Justin Herbert at the same time. If you're looking at the yards per carry for Gus Edwards, 2.36 week 1, 3.28 week 2, 3 yards per carry in week 3. There's really no upside, and he is rostered in 60% of leagues. He's had 1 reception this year. I'm going over to Jamal Williams. Jamal's only rostered in 10% of leagues, will be super brief, but this is a continued trend. Now you've actually seen Jamal Williams in a game with no Taysom Hill and no Kondre Miller, still not viable, even if you were to have an Alvin Kamara injury. I mean, Miller is coming back very, very soon. Now, the most controversial or the toughest player to cut on this list will be Zamir White. And to be honest with you, if you were going to hold on to a running back on this list, it would be Zamir. But he is rostered in 82% of leagues at this point. And honestly, I think you can have a very serious conversation about moving on from him. Where week 1, he only played 38% of the snaps. Obviously, you were on high alert after that happens. But in week 2, it jumps up. Week 2, you see him out there for 63% of the snaps in this backfield. And I actually thought, oh, okay, I guess he's playing the majority snaps and he is going to be the guy against the Carolina Panthers defense that has been blown up through the first 2 weeks. Thought he was somewhat interesting in week 3, but no, that falls to 22% of the snaps in this offense. Horribly inefficient. I mean, 3.38, then 2.67, and then 3.4 yards per carry. Absolutely nothing as a receiver either. Through the first 3 weeks, he has 16 receiving yards. So I think Zamir White is somebody that you can go ahead and cut. And what's the real upside in offense? That's just absolutely garbage. Our next guy is going to be Marshawn Lloyd. Obviously, this will be an interesting situation. If you have an IR slot, then you can go ahead. You can just move him there. If not, it's a safe player to cut. And we'll actually talk about the running back that you want in Green Bay in just 1 second. But I do want you to also move on from the Miami running backs. Both Jalen Wright and Jeff Wilson, where if you're looking at Jalen Wright, he has pretty much exactly what you'd want to see over the past 2 weeks, the opportunity to step in with a Raheem Mostert injury. What does he do with this opportunity? He gives you 5 carries for 4 rushing yards against the Bills, and you get 2 carries against the Seattle Seahawks, with Devon Achane playing a career high in terms of his snap rate. Now you have to add in the fact that this is a garbage offense going into the future. Plus, you add in the fact that Raheem Mostert may be coming back this week. Jalen Wright is rostered in 33% of leagues, but I think go ahead and cut him, as well as Jeff Wilson Jr. for the same reasons. But let's go over to the running backs that are actually interesting adds. Now, the number one player that we are going to be looking at here will be Chuba Hubbard. Now, he's already rostered in 61% of formats, so I completely understand if you're playing in a league that is a 12-team format, Hubbard is already on the squad, or a squad at the very minimum. But honestly, just kind of wanted to talk about him because he is one of the biggest movers in the Flock rankings this week. If you head over to flockfantasy.com, you can find the link in the description and comment section. You can actually check out all the expert rankings for free every single week. You get free use to the trade calculator, free use to the trade finder. There's a bunch of free stuff over there that I pretty much use every single day. And Chuba Hubbard is working himself up to now in my rest of season rankings. He has jumped some of these running backs like Raheem Mostert, like Austin Eckler. Chuba Hubbard now is probably going to be jumping Trey Benson, Jalen Wright to be the RB 34, 35, where he does look viable in games that Andy Dalton's under center. In games where Andy Dalton's under center, all of a sudden this team's able to pick up first downs. This team's able to, have trips to the red zone. And going into the future, I think that we can say, oh, okay, Chuba Hubbard is a viable play here in week 4, coming off a game where he drops 28 points against the Raiders. Now, full transparency, do I think Chuba Hubbard is a locked and loaded must-start RB2? Probably not. He hasn't played over 60% of the snaps for the Panthers a single time this year. There's probably some regression due for this Carolina Panthers offense. Miles Sanders is still getting involved. So Chuba Hubbard's still that borderline flex play / a running back too that you could play if you're dealing with one of the multitude of injuries, such as the Isaiah Pacheco injury, such as the Christian McCaffrey injury, which we do have a little more info on we can talk about later. But going over to Braylon Allen has also been a massive mover in the flockfantasy.com rankings. There he is up to my running back 35 rest of season. And yes, he has moved ahead of the guys like Jalen Warren. He's moved ahead of the guys like Trey Benson, for the reason being that he's actually a viable option even when Breece Hall's healthy. And this isn't something that I was expecting, to be honest with you. I thought when Breece Hall was healthy that Braylon Allen would be someone that you couldn't come close to. But no, we are seeing the elite efficiency from a running back that was a phenomenal prospect coming out of Wisconsin. He had this size where he weighed 235 pounds. He was a receiving back as well at Wisconsin, and you see that carry over into the NFL, where so far through the first 3 weeks, he's actually had a total of 8 targets. He's actually had a total of 6 receptions, and the receiving yardage marks have been there. He's had a receiving touchdown. On top of this, the rushing efficiency has been there. 8 yards per carry week 1, 4.7 yards per carry week 2, 5 yards per carry this past week. So if you are desperate during a bye week or with an injury, you could presumably throw Braylon Allen into a flex, saying, okay, he has the talent profile, and at the same time, this is a great offensive line for the New York Jets. But the most exciting part about Braylon Allen is this is a running back that will come out and absolutely crush if Breece Hall were to go down. Like, if Breece Hall were to go down, I would probably be ranking him alongside guys like Kenneth Walker, Derrick Henry, and Josh Jacobs in my rankings that week. Now, moving over to our next running back, he is the third best option. Bucky Irving is available in 44% of leagues. I have no idea how this guy is still available. He was a must-add guy for us week 1, must-add guy for us week 2, a must-add for us week 3. This is the 4th straight week where Bucky Irving has been on a waiver wire video for us, and he continues to outshine Rachaad White at every opportunity he has had. And now what we are actually seeing is not just everybody on Twitter, including myself, scream how much better Bucky Irving has been from a per touch perspective, but also this coaching staff is now coming out and saying, yes, Bucky Irving has played himself into a larger role going into the future. This is a running back that's already seen 25 carries through the first 3 games of his NFL career. And you go back to his time at Oregon, what was extremely exciting wasn't necessarily his raw rushing totals. No, what was exciting was his usage as a receiver. That was his strength coming out of school, where you actually saw 56 receptions for 413 receiving yards his final season at Oregon. So if you were to see Bucky Irving continue to expand his role in this offense, it may not just be with the carries on first and second down. It may actually also include some of this third down involvement, and he may end up stealing some of the receiving work from Rachaad White. And then obviously he does have the premium handcuff appeal if White were to go down. Now our 4th best pickup this week is going to be Cam Akers. Now I actually traded for Cam Akers in the Flock League. I paid Tyler Algier and a couple fab dollars. I thought Akers was a very viable play against the Minnesota Vikings. And obviously the Vikings just completely blew up this Texans offense. Now, with that being said, if you were looking at the underlying usage, Cam Akers still had the majority of these snaps. Cam Akers still had the majority of the touches in this backfield. Now, yes, the third down back Dare is going to stay out there regardless. He was their third down back when Joe Mixon was healthy. He'll be their third down back when Joe Mixon is not healthy. But Cam Akers is slated to get everything on the first 2 downs here. And going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars in week 4, I mean, let me see if I can find the updated spread that you have on this game. I would imagine that we actually have the Houston Texans as heavy favorites here, where we should assume that the Texans, unlike this game that they just had against the Minnesota Vikings, are going to be able to run the ball over and over and over again. And yeah, the Texans are anywhere from 4.5 to 6 point favorites, depending on the sportsbook that you are looking at right this second. And Mixon didn't practice at all last week. Mixon got ruled out extremely early in the week. Dameon Pierce got ruled out early in the week as well. So Akers is slated to potentially be yet again a starting running back for an offense that should be much better. And if that is the case, Akers will be in my top 24 running back rankings this week. Now, obviously, I'd rather have Hubbard. I'd rather have Braylon Allen. I'd rather have Bucky Irving, because those are the running backs with the rest of season upside as well, where Akers would just be a play for this week at the most. Now, Kareem Hunt will be our next pickup. Now, I had not had the opportunity to talk about Kareem Hunt in last week's waiver wire video because it was my mistake. I recorded that Sunday night before Kareem Hunt had signed. That's why we're recording this a little bit later this week. But nonetheless, I do want to be on record. I do think that Carson Steele, more likely than not, is the starting running back for the Kansas City Chiefs. But Kareem Hunt will most likely be active this next week for the Chiefs. And to be honest with you, we don't know what to expect. I don't know what to expect. I mean, I don't think Carson Steele knows what to expect. You could presumably see Kareem Hunt come out and actually take over as the starting running back here for this Chiefs offense. This could potentially be a spot where Kareem Hunt is seeing 60 to 70% of the snaps in Kansas City. But also there's a possibility that Hunt, Steele, Pirine, they all turn this into a 3-man running back by committee and nobody is viable. We'll get a lot more information this week against the Chargers. All I know is I for sure want to be rostering every running back I can in this KC backfield. That way, when we get that clarity in week 4, hopefully by the time we get to week 5, we know exactly who we're rolling with. Now, Roshan Johnson will be the 6th best running back pickup this week. This is somebody that's only rostered in about 6% of leagues. So I know a lot of the running backs previously are already going to be on teams in your league, but Roshan should be available. And to be honest with you, it was very tough to see Roshan Johnson perform the way he did this past week in Chicago, where he was more efficient this week than DeAndre Swift has been all season. Now, I had Swift in my lineup in the Flock League. Obviously, I get absolutely crushed. I'm an idiot. I thought it was a good matchup against Indy. I don't know what I was thinking. But Roshan now cements himself as the third down back. Now, the reason I took him in so many drafts in Underdog in round 18 is because all you hear from coaching staffs, both with his time at Texas, as well as in his rookie season in Chicago, is, oh, this guy you can trust in the passing game. Best pass blocking running back on this roster. We are going to get him in on third downs. We are going to get him in the 2-minute drill. And I was very surprised to see that wasn't the case in weeks 1 and 2. But a big portion of that was Roshan Johnson was dealing with an injury during training camp. And now that job is completely Roshan's. It looks like DeAndre Swift has lost it. We know Khalil Herbert is really not going to have any third down involvement at best. Khalil Herbert's only a first and second down option. And Travis Homer just hits the IR. So Roshan Johnson, hook 'em horns. I love the guy. Quick little backstory. He actually went to the University of Texas as a quarterback prospect, goes into a very crowded QB room. He was supposed to be a redshirt quarterback. Our entire running back room gets decimated. The coaching staff begs him to transition over to running back just for that season. And then he was so good at running back that they never were able to move him back to quarterback. Ultimate team player, somebody that you want to root for, has the receiving role. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if DeAndre Swift just continues to fade and fade and fade. Now, our 7th best running back pickup this week will be available in 6% of leagues. This is Emanuel Wilson. So because you have Travis Homer going to the IR, Roshan gets the bump. Marshawn Lloyd going to the IR gives Emanuel Wilson the bump. I was very surprised to see the involvement he had in this offense this week. He played 41% of the snaps here in Green Bay, where Josh Jacobs against Indy had every single touch. Jacobs against Indy was an absolute dominant 3-down workhorse back. Now with Emanuel Wilson, what's impressive is you have the involvement as a receiver where he hasn't had too many opportunities running the football this year. You only have 21 rushing attempts, but you also have 5 targets. So since you have the 5 targets, the 37 receiving yards so far this season, if you are desperate, I mean, unless you have a garbage team, you're not going to be starting Emanuel Wilson even during a bye week. You could if you really needed to, but really the reason you're rostering him is, oh, okay, if Jacobs were to go down, Marshawn Lloyd's on the IR, Emanuel Wilson should be seeing every single touch. AJ Dillon's on the IR as well. So this is pretty much the same setup that you had with Jordan Mason, where y'all know when Elijah Mitchell went to the IR in San Francisco, we immediately said, hey, pick up this guy, Jordan Mason. CMC was presumably okay at the time, but it's like, oh, if McCaffrey goes down, Mason's going to get everything. It's a similar situation here for Emanuel Wilson in this Green Bay Packers offense, just because all the other running backs have gone down besides him and Jacobs. Now let's go over to some of the defensive streamers this week. There are actually 2 defenses that are really interesting. 2 defenses that I would cut real quick if you streamed them last week. The Seattle Seahawks obviously were a phenomenal play with their defense through the first 3 weeks, where you had Denver, you had New England, you had Miami. This next week, you're going up against the Giants. So I know Seattle's rostered in about 57% of leagues. I still kind of view them as a streaming defense rest of season. And this is a much tougher matchup against the Detroit Lions. Going over to the Los Angeles Chargers defense. The Chargers, super easy cut this week. Yes, they had a phenomenal first 3 games set up where you go up against the Raiders, the Panthers, and the Steelers. Well, now you have to play the Chiefs, and then you're going into your bye. They're rostered in 48% of leagues. I think I would just let go of them. The best defensive streamers that you could find this week, in my mind, will be the 2 teams actually playing against each other. It's going to be the Tennessee Titans and the Miami Dolphins. Now, typically what we are looking for with the viable defensive play is we want a defense that is heavily favored in their game. That way they can go up against a team that's going to have a ton of dropbacks, so we can generate sacks, we can generate turnovers, and we want a game with a lower total overall. Well, here at this Tennessee Titans Miami Dolphins game has an over-under of 37 points, which is the lowest mark of the week. We have no idea who the Miami quarterback's going to be. Maybe it's Tim Boyle. Maybe it's somebody else. We know Will Levis has currently more backwards passing attempts than forward passing attempts. Will Levis is a pick 6 machine at this point. So yeah, I think Miami, Tennessee are both very appealing. Looking at who they play after this week, I think Miami would be the premium pickup because not only do they get the Tennessee Titans this week, but then the next week they actually get to go up against the New England Patriots. Whereas with the Tennessee Titans, on the other hand, here you actually have the bye 2 weeks from now, where there would just be an immediate cut for you almost regardless of what happens this week. But I think that's all I have for you in this video. I really hope you enjoyed this format of us ranking the best options and also including defensive and quarterback streamers. If you did, let me know in the comment section and also drop a like. And I do want to reiterate, of course, I'm updating my rankings every single day over there on flockfantasy.com, as well as all the other creators. If you wanted to check out the average expert rankings over there on the site, you can do so for free. Just go over to flockfantasy.com. The link's in the description and comment section. Also, we have a free trade calculator that you're all able to use, and you're able to put in your exact league settings. And on top of that, you can actually link your team if you play on Sleeper, ESPN, or Yahoo, and use our algorithms and rankings to create a power rankings for your league with the teams that have the most value to the teams that have the least value. So make sure you take advantage of that over there on flockfantasy.com. Completely free. Find the link in the description in the comment section. But that's all I got for you. Really do appreciate you, and really hope I get to see you out with the live stream later tonight.